Existing, experienced school board members, people who just got elected in the last cycle and want to learn, people who are thinking about running in 2013, and people who want to be better citizens, better watchdogs. Our next presenter is going to be Jim Laverty. He's the president of the Concerned Citizens of Bethlehem Area School District. Jim is very active. He keeps the local legislators and school board member and superintendent informed and advised of his opinion. So I'd like to introduce Jim Laverty.
Okay, thanks Hayden. Well, Hayden is getting me set up here with my presentation. Just wanted to say thank you to everyone here. Thank you in particular to Hayden for organizing the effort, to the Lehigh Valley Tea Party Education Reform Committee, does so much work to get this together, to the speakers and all the attendees, because this type of effort, this showing people's commitment, this is what gives me hope that we will be able to transform the current public education system in Pennsylvania into a system that's both sustainable and effective. I would contend, and I've developed this opinion over the last several years, even more so than before I got involved, that the current system, not sustainable and not effective. So what are we doing? We're really hurting our children. What I'm going to cover today, basically four general areas. I'll talk to you a little bit about what our group is, Concerned Citizens of Bethlehem Area School District, CCBASD, where we came from. I'll talk about some milestones and experiences, I'll couch this up front by saying I'm going to do it from the perspective of not only a citizens group, but also from taking advantage of having some brave people here who are now on the school board, and give you my opinion as a citizens group on the other side of the presentations and of the desk from the school board directors, and just give you some of my advice from that experience. We'll talk a little bit about our action plan, some specific things that we've been engaged with and what we continue to work with. And then, as I said, what I'm going to do is give you some perspective from our experience and what we see going forward, and what we'd ask, and advise people who are interested to get into citizens groups with the school board. You know what? There will be ups and downs. Okay, this is not a straight shot to the top and getting victory. So it's a long haul, but it is worth it. So there will be ups and downs. And the other aspect is from the school board directors. The perspective that I would share with you, and I'm going to repeat this towards the end of the presentation too, is just to remind you that when you're elected to serve the taxpayers, the students, and the parents. Those are your constituents. Unfortunately, our experience has been that the people who are engaged in the system, okay, they look, and their first priority is to serve the educational establishment, okay? And if you can change that, you would have made tremendous progress. So as a school board director, I just ask you to keep that in mind as you move forward with all of the things that you're responsible to do. So what is the Concerned Citizens of Bethlehem Area School District? We formed during the beginning stages of the Tea Party movement. So, I talk about us as being, we're Tea Party babies. We came of birth through the Tea Party movement. We woke up as a group and individuals, we woke up and now we're never going to go back to sleep. That's the attitude that we have as a citizens group. Now, our mission was overall to support the restoration of the American founding principles. We decided to attack issues in education to start with, and those founding principles. Maximize individual liberty, support a government that's limited and is fiscally responsible and operates under the rule of law. Pennsylvania Constitution, U.S. Constitution. Basic stuff that you would assume no one would ever disagree with you about. And then our operating principles, we took a focus of making sure that we would both provide information and solutions as we move forward. We were not going to take the approach that we were just going to sit around and complain to each other, okay, about how bad things are. We did the complaining, and we also take the action. So what we focus on is promoting public awareness and also providing practical solutions. And when you get the charts, you can see how well we did with our mission statement. I won't go over that now. Now, just to cover some what I would characterize as major milestones and experiences, you know, we started off our work and we did what I mentioned before, and that is we provided some practical solutions and suggestions. We went through and did a lot of homework in our school district, and we provided a multi-page written document that gave very specific observations about where we saw there were issues with regard to audits, regard to spending growth, tax growth, and the whole budget process. So we were not there just to complain. We complained, and while we complained, we provided some written documentation with some suggestions. Unfortunately, what we've experienced in that first case has been continually the case, and that is most of the time what happens is if you're addressing anything that is not exactly in line with the education establishment, and particularly the teachers union, you'll get, if it's a good night, you'll get a smile and a nod, and then people move on to the next thing. But you very rarely get a direct response. Okay, so that's when I think about as a citizens group, when you are getting into this, be aware that you will go through, and we went through hours of putting together this very specific proposal, and we never got a formal response. And they're not held by law to do that. Okay, so that's, as a school board director, think about that. When you have citizens coming to you, there's a motivation. They had to be motivated to come in front of you to begin with. So take the time to engage. Soon after we were formed in Bethlehem, I'm not sure if everybody's aware of this because it got a lot of press. Soon after we were formed, we had the swaps scandal, which, we lost tens of millions of dollars. A lot of stuff did unwind through our, I think we played a role in trying to encourage people on the board to do that, but there's still some hangover there. So it was a huge liability to the school district. So, we took a role to try to make sure that the public awareness of the scandal, that people did know what was going on. The Morning Call did a terrific job with writing a series of articles about the details. What we did, in addition, we did get the Auditor General, not just from us, but we did encourage. The PA Auditor General did an investigation. It's a procedural investigation, so there's no civil or criminal consequences. And then when that was completed, we encouraged, in writing and through direct contact, to all of the civil and criminal authorities up the chain, district attorneys, up through the FBI and the SEC. It culminated in a conference call interview with our board from the lead investigator from the SEC. Now, unfortunately, nothing has come of it as of this point, and they'll never give you an official word whether or not there will be an investigation or they're doing anything. But I have to say, through the process, one of the things that I did get from, I won't be able to tell you which organization, one of these government organizations said to me off the record, when they looked at all the facts, they said, Jim, you know what? It's not illegal to be stupid. And unfortunately, that's what happened to us. I mean, we, as a school district, we got stuck for millions of dollars because people who were in power thought they were the smartest people in the room, and thought that they could deal with some experienced investment bankers and outwit them at their own game. So we know who won, and we lost. So one thing, though, was good is as a result of all that scandal, we did get a new finance director, a new superintendent. Another item I think is important to mention is that in our approach, again, from a problem-solving point of view, up to this point, I think we're still the only group in our district who has come forward in a comprehensive and systematic way to talk about school performance. You know, we actually did some education of our own, trying to educate the school board to say, hey, you know what? First of all, it's not good that we're rated in the bottom third of school districts in Pennsylvania. So that's not success. And we made it known that, you know, the next time you do a teacher's contract, that should be taken into account. Okay? That wasn't received well, but that was clearly the message. And then also we took the step to say not only are we failing our kids in our district, but across Pennsylvania, being in the bottom third, and also nationally and internationally. I mean, there's no way around it. If you look at the facts and figures, our public school system in the country is failing, and somebody's got to have the guts to look themselves in the mirror and say, you're right, that is what's happening, and we've got to fix it. So that's a very unusual set of discussions at a school board meeting, at least from our experience, because that usually does not come up. We actually even had one of the local press people said, you know, I don't think anybody else is doing this, even asking about these questions. So we think that's an important thing. And then, you know, one of the things, because we decided to never go to sleep again, some of our members, they're doing other things too. So to demonstrate their vigilance, we got somebody who's, you know, a local leader now in one of the parties, the political parties, and another member ran for school board. Some other experience here. I'll call out one thing quickly. We worked closely with the Lehigh Valley Tea Party from the very beginning. We were one of the early adopters of the limited government pledge that the Tea Party put together, and we've worked with them on candidate forums in the past. There are two items here, the next two, which I'm going to take a little bit of time to explain. I have to set the context. So the next two items here, if you can read on the chart, and if you can't see it, I'll just read them out. One is school bus drivers and administrative personnel contract renewal, and the next line item is the teacher's early renewal of contract. So let me set the stage. So as we were engaged with the school board, we made it very clear through all of the workings that we did with them that when contract negotiation came up next, in all cases, we wanted the school board to take a better a position for the taxpayer. So we wanted the school board to be an advocate of the taxpayer. All of the things that we had seen up to that point, that was not happening. It was really advocating the people who were involved in the system already. So that was very clear. We made that public. We spoke at many meetings. So along comes the renewal of the contract for school bus drivers and administrative personnel. This one I'll characterize as a good sign because we had all those problems that we identified and we're going through an economic downturn. So we said very clearly, people need to sacrifice. The taxpayer has been sacrificing all along because we continuously get tax increases throughout the economic downturn. So we needed the other side to have some sacrifice. This contract gets signed, good sign in my opinion. I think it was a 3 or 4 year contract. First 2 years, 0% increase. Third year, I believe, was a 1% increase. Now, that was a sign of good faith that I thought from the people on the other side, the workers in the union, that they realized what kind of pain we were in. So that's on the upside, okay, from our experience. Well, lo and behold, several months later, again, to set some context, our regular board meetings are held on Monday nights. So Friday afternoons, the agenda is published, and that agenda says, here's what we're going to officially talk about Monday night. So this meeting comes around in December, and we see the agenda on Friday. nothing of major consequence on the agenda. Lo and behold, what does happen? Sunday, late afternoon, just under the wire for the minimum state requirement of 24-hour notice, on the website, the school district announces an adjustment to the agenda. Oh, by the way, they've been negotiating in secret with the teachers union all along, and now, 9 months early, they've reached an agreement on a contract. And that contract on the agenda item that was posted Sunday afternoon will come to a vote Monday night. That's public notice. Of course, it was ratified, and we got another 4-year contract, stuffed, in my opinion, stuffed down the taxpayer's throat. That's a bad one, okay? So when I say ups and downs, that was a bad one. Another item, just to call out, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this on another chart. We've been actively involved in supporting a piece of legislation that's currently in the General Assembly now. It's House Bill 1776, companion bill, Senate Bill 1400. And what that does is it eliminates school property taxes and replaces it with sales and income tax. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes, but that's really generated by 72 grassroots taxpayer organizations across the state over several years. And then also, just to conclude on this chart, we've taken an active role in elections. We've looked at not necessarily somebody from a particular party, but what principles do they stand for? And we're supportive of them. In the last election for school board, held a press conference to introduce candidates that we thought were of the right mindset. And also, we raised money and paid for radio spots on the local radio station. Let me talk a little bit more about our action plan going forward. So we've got a view that says, I think it's right in sync with what you heard from Simon and Ed earlier today, and that is, you've got to do stuff local, and you've got to also try to influence stuff at the state level. Because there are state rules that we operate under that are they just don't make any sense, okay? So from a local perspective, we're still going to stay, focused on academic performance. In our school district, it's unacceptable. From our perspective, there are schools that are still on notice that they haven't measured up to the state standards. And basically, what does that mean? That means that our schools are failing our children. Totally unacceptable. From a transparency perspective, what we try to do is make sure that people understand the current system is unsustainable. We're fooling ourselves if we think that it can last much longer. And then change the school board. So all of those experiences, I have to say that did not happen all overnight, that we said, we got to change the school board. We tried to work with the school board, but there's really very little interaction that we would take as being favorable, okay? We had 3 candidates. We got them through the primary. They successfully got through the primary. We supported them. Unfortunately, all 3 of them lost in the general election. So we're still struggling, okay? The teachers union is a big foe. So don't underestimate this, okay? But we're not giving up, okay? We're going to redouble our efforts. Now, let me go back to something that I just mentioned to you before about the teachers' early renewal of contract. And this goes to, I think, people outside of this room. Clearly, this doesn't apply to anybody here. But overall, I would still contend that the vast majority of people, at least in our school district, are unengaged, okay? So I told you that experience about what happened with the teachers union contract, how it was done early, and I would contend it was underhanded. Any other circumstance, if you actually talk to somebody about that, they would not vote for people who were part of that board. In the last election, the person who was president of the school board was the leading vote getter. And you talk to somebody in the street and say, what happened? How could you have voted? People are not engaged. They don't know. So we've got to do a better job of getting people aware of those details. And we're going to, so build awareness and find candidates for the next election cycle. On a state level, I mentioned already, replacing school property tax, it's not the panacea to end all problems, but it is a significant first step. I think a lot of the things that you heard from Ed and from Simon about the rules around how education is run in the state are all things that need to be addressed, all at the state level. So merit pay for teachers, more school choice, local flexibility in budgeting. Let me elaborate on that. It was talked about both previous speakers. As a school board, when you come to the budget, and maybe I don't have the wording exactly right, but I think you'll get the message. Basically, a school board does not have the ability to just cut expense dollars. Okay? In private sector, if you're hemorrhaging and you're not getting it done, you look to make cuts across the board, and then where you find, after further investigation, where you think you can cut even more, you cut more. That's not possible in the Pennsylvania school system, because the state laws require, and I think Ed mentioned this, you can't cut expense dollars like that. You have to cut programs. So when you cut programs, who do you hurt? You hurt the kids, right? So when you hurt the kid, that's where you can have this the stereotype that the educational establishment says is, oh, if you're going to cut, you're hurting the kids. Well, their rules make it so that we hurt the kids because you cut an entire program. So it's absolutely ridiculous. And prevailing wage, another one, spending money needlessly. It just doesn't make sense. I'm going to advertisement quickly. House Bill 1776. It's called the Property Tax Independence Act. The upper left side of the chart, Senate Bill 1400. If you want to learn about the details, this website. This is part of the team, 72 grassroots taxpayer organizations across the state who've helped develop this. Now, it's basically, go to the website to get the details, but the way I would describe it, it addresses the unfair property tax system today. And this unfair current system, it particularly has a negative impact on young people, okay? So if you think about a young person, whether it's a family or an individual, trying to get into a house, you know from having a mortgage payment, a big chunk of that mortgage payment is taxes. The biggest chunk of property taxes, school property taxes. So just imagine how more young people could get over the hump and get into a home if they didn't have that burden. The other aspect is retirees. Very quickly on a fixed income, continuous increase of taxes is going to eat away at that fixed income. And you have people across the state who have paid off a home and due to continuous school property tax increases are now being evicted from homes. Happens all over the state. This is going to address that. So, legislative support. The way I would characterize this, we're off to a good start, but we need a lot more help. So let me just tell you what these numbers mean. So on the left side of the chart, this is in the House. At the very bottom, you see there are 203 representatives in the House today. So to pass a bill, we need to get one more than 50%. So we need to get 102. Right now, as of this week, we've got 69 co-sponsors. That's a great start. But we still got to get 33 more. So I encourage you, learn about the bill. If you support it, contact your state representative. We just had a rally Monday in Harrisburg, and after the rally, Hayden and I, who happen to have the same state representative, paid a visit to her, and she's kindly signed on as co-sponsor. So we're great. So we made a visit thanking her for her support. On the Senate side, 50 senators. We need one more than 50%, so you need 26. We've got 12 co-sponsors. So more work to do both places, but we've got a chance now to make these changes. Now, getting to some more lessons learned from our experiences. This, again, previous speakers I think have echoed this. The true reform that we're going to have in the school system across the state, it's got to come from local and state. You cannot rely on just one or the other happening. Both have to be done. And here's, again, advice for school directors. When I talk to state legislators, whether it's through email, on the phone, or in person, I'm surprised when they say they hardly ever hear from school directors. They don't hear from the school district. So as a school director, even if you have the lawyer and the school board telling you you can't speak for the school board, because we've heard that one, as an individual, as a school director, you still have the right, and also I would contend the responsibility, to let your state legislator know what the issues are. Let them know that prevailing wage is laughable and ridiculous, okay? So I would encourage you as school directors to think upward to the state legislature as being one of the areas that you've got to address. Yes, Chris?
Jim, I've got a quick question for you on that. Davis-Bacon, which was put in place back during the Depression in the 30s, that's the law that governs prevailing wage. That included that. Is there anything you can do at the state level, or does that have to be repealed, or that portion of the bill repealed in Davis-Bacon Act?
Well, there's currently a bill in the House to modify, to allow the school districts to opt out of the requirements. So that it is the answer. The net of it answer is it can be done at the legislature.
Out in the Hanover area, I know they were doing some projects at the school, and they actually had the National Guard come in and do the projects for them, which I think is a great idea. It's a win-win for everybody. You don't have to worry about paying the prevailing wage. The National Guard gets their qualifications in. Why can't the other districts look into it? What went on there? Let's find out.
I mean, practical advice, practical things. We need to let, if you're a school board director and you're told that's a state mandate or state law, I'm not allowed to do that, you know what? Take the opportunity to write an opinion piece. Make sure that that opinion piece gets forwarded to your state representative and your state senator. Let them know those issues are people are talking about it and they're being affected. We move on to some other things. You know, again, advice for a citizens group. Make sure you know how your district is doing from a performance standpoint. Okay, they're published percentages. Now, that performance in and of itself, all right, because this is the first knee-jerk response that you will get from the school board when you talk about this. That's not a true indication of our performance. Now, I'll grant that the precision on that number is not something that I want to stand behind. But directionally, if you're in the bottom third of the state, that's not good. Okay, I don't need to know math. I don't need to know anything extra than that. So it's important to be armed with that information. Get to know the school board members. And, you know, find out who do they support. You know, what you'll find is that in many cases, many school board members have some type of relationship with the education establishment. Sometimes they're retirees of a retired principal or retired school teacher. They maybe have a spouse who's a teacher or whatever. So those, you need to understand that and know where they're coming from. Do they prioritize the taxpayer and the students and the parents, or do they prioritize the establishment? And you know what? You need to replace them. If they support the establishment, our experience is no discussion will change their mind. Okay? So you have to understand that and go forward to replace them. And you know what? Here's another suggestion for the school board. School board members, once you're on the school board, do not be afraid to disagree with your school board members. Okay? For some reason, okay, what our experience has been is even somebody who seems to be of like mind, when they become part of the school board, they have this bunker mentality that all of a sudden I'm part of the school board and I can't buck the school board. I'd ask you, every time you go to a meeting, find out, you know, is there one thing that I can say publicly that is going to be opposed to the rest of the school board? And if it is, when you have your time, take it and make sure you mention it. Because the people who are sitting in the audience, if you don't say it, they don't know that you support them. And we've had that issue, all right? People don't say anything. Oh, I can't say that. The lawyer says we can't speak for the whole board. Don't speak for the whole board. Speak for yourself as a board member. Okay. Also, Hold people accountable, all right? So, the school board local elections, you know what? Somebody being likable and being an incumbent, that is no criteria for you to vote for him the next time. But unfortunately, when you have casual conversations with people in the neighborhood, those appear to be the two big things, okay? So vote on principles, regardless of what party. And, you know, status quo, and I'm not talking about the status quo law that Simon referenced, but the status quo that everything is just going fine is wrong. So that's the special interest view. Don't let that seep into your head. Now, public opinion. Public opinion has to be changed for us to get the changes in place that we need. And now what I'm going to do is identify some common myths about public education, and we've got to debunk them, and so we can fix the problem. These are things, and this is a short list, there are many others, but people in your neighborhood, they have to understand that these things are myths, and that's the way we'll change public opinion. And then over time, we'll get the right people on boards and in the state. So I'm just going to go through them quickly. Increased spending equals increased quality and performance in education. Absolutely not. There's nothing that shows, no study that has showed to say that that's real. But the pervasive opinion of people who are not engaged with the system, that's something that they would assume is correct. Next thing, lower student to teacher ratios equals increased quality and performance. Again, no studies to support that. What studies support is the better quality teacher has a better impact, a positive impact on the outcome in education. But how do you know about that if you can't pay them for merit? Okay? So, and then here's another one. The teachers union prioritizes student needs. Thank you. I was hoping that we'd get some laughs on that one. Now, individual teachers definitely do. Some of the best people I've ever met are individual teachers that I've had the pleasure of being involved with. Teachers union, totally different story. Here's another one. PA public education system is predominantly influenced by parents and students' interests. Now, it's the special interests who influence and are predominant. I'd ask everybody to try this if you haven't already done it. Go speak at a school board meeting or speak to a legislator. Speak on a topic that is not supported by the teachers union. What will happen? You will not be well received. Okay? Your state legislature will start a little bit of a trembling because they're afraid they're going to get targeted by the teachers union and the big money. Okay? The school board, in many cases, are entrenched people within the education system. So do that once and you'll know that that is a myth. And then another one, this is one that personal experience with, only parents of current public education students should be concerned about school district issues. First time I showed up to a school board meeting, I was asked, well, does your daughter goes to the school now or not? Well, that's none of your business, okay? We all have a vested interest in the school system, and we should make sure that people know that.
Excuse me.
Yes?
I just wanted to talk about number 2 there, the lower student ratio. Now, the upper grades I have no problems with, but I have a concern with kindergarten, first and second. I've been a teacher in K through 5 and a reading specialist, and I really think that that's the place where we need the lower ratios. Now, I volunteer in the East Penn School District, and I'm in a first grade with a fabulous male teacher with 30 kids in the class. We have 5 first grades, and every class has 30. And that, to me, is out of line.
It may be, and I honestly, I have to say, I'm not here to give you the precise number, but again, directionally, the movement has been that, you know, we're throwing everything to the wind just to lower the ratios. And I don't know if you take it from that perspective if it's really the right way. I grant that there are cases, but that's where the local school district should decide. Because, you know, I'll give my experience. I grew up in a school district in New Jersey. It was maybe 75–80% people who either they or their family were not born in the U.S., okay? There was a huge percentage of people who were Hispanic, and when I grew up, I don't know that I had a class in elementary school that was less than 30 children, right? And yet, those teachers, I don't know, were they miracle workers? I'm not sure. I mean, I think they were very good, but we had people who had English as a second language who wound up graduating with me from 8th grade into high school, out of high school, who were very proficient. So, and it wasn't a minority. It was the vast majority who were successful. So I'm not here to dispute the right thing. I just think directionally we need to make sure that it's not a boilerplate to say that that stops all conversations. What happens generally is with the with any discussions with the teachers union, they try to pick an emotional issue and stop the conversation. We're here for the kids, right? And then what do? I'm here not for the kids, right?
That's what they do. They say, oh, K to 5 needs
right. So, but I think what you and I are just having is a discussion on the topic that you would reach a practical resolution. Unfortunately, those things don't even happen, right? So, but I see your point, and I agree that's what should be discussed. One more question in the back?
Yeah, I'm just saying if she was an assistant to the teacher, there was a ratio of 15 to 1, if there was 2 in the class.
So let me go back to my last chart. Thank you for your attention here. This is a sobering statement. Okay, this data is actually from the Commonwealth Foundation, which I'm an active viewer of their website and follow. They do some great work, and you're going to have a Commonwealth Foundation speaker later today. So here it is. It's not that we don't spend enough money on education. You know, if you look internationally again, not only is our performance low, but our spend is high. Okay, so it's not that more money equals better quality. It's how we spend it. So if you look over the last 10 years in public education in Pennsylvania, here's just some stark directional numbers. Adjusted for inflation, the spending is doubled. Academic performance, it's about flat. Student enrollment actually has declined slightly. And yet staff in the school districts increased double digits. How is that a sustainable formula, right? It's not going to work. It won't stay in much longer. So what I'm going to leave you with, again, a reminder to the school board directors. Remember, you've been elected to represent taxpayers, students, and parents. That's the priority. The special interests in the educational community, they're part of who you have to deal with and work with, but they are not the priority. Questions?
How much of that school district staff increase, you say is 14%, how much of that do you think is because of federal guidelines, no child left behind and so forth?
I don't know.
I'm trying to be fair about
No,
this.
I wouldn't be able to comment on that level of breakout.
I don't think that's
Yes?
Jim, there's that one chart that you showed as to how many votes we need in both the House and the Senate in order to pass that one bill, and you had actual numbers there. Actually, you need to amend that just a little bit. It should read, or 51% for whoever is there that day to vote when the vote is taken.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. So we really might not need that total number. We may.
Yeah, but if we can get that total number, it doesn't matter who shows up.
Yeah, right. The other thing is that one website you gave, I would invite everybody here to make sure and take a look at it, top right corner of the slide. And if you like what you see, and I'm betting you do, just let everybody else know about that same website so they too can see that same information.
Okay. Eric, let me get to Eric. I'll go to you next.
Yeah, on that topic, my state senator, Lisa Boscola, just informed me in a newsletter this morning that she supports property tax elimination. But she made some reference to a different bill. What's that all about?
I don't know about that other one. Actually, Karen showed me that same document.
2230 Seth Groves.
She said it was an amendment to a Senate bill, so it sounds like it's something different.
Yeah, administrative nightmare.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Are there competing bills?
I believe they are. So I think this is the best balanced bill.
Well, Groves doesn't include the elimination. He has it still in there.
Right. It's a good point that Chris made. You know, what has happened over many years, people will use the term reform, and all it does is it gives you a temporary reprise in either holding the line or reducing, and then you look back 5 years from now and they wound up increasing it again. Yeah. So that's why the beauty of this one that I spoke about, in my opinion, is that it eliminates, okay, and then gives an alternate source, gives a broader base of taxes. Are we doing on time?
We're behind, but could you just answer John's question?
John.
I agree that we have to change the funding from property taxes to another way of doing it. I believe it was about 3 months ago, Simon spoke at a Tea Party meeting, first speaker here today, and he said you got to be careful about like letting the state collect the money, because then the local school districts lose control of how it's spent. Secondly, you got to worry about Ed Rendell II getting into the governorship and Democrats taking over the House and the Senate, and now that 1% state tax becomes 3% because now the teachers' unions are all like grabbing extra money.
Now, these are excellent points, and these are the most common points that are raised. And Chris, let me finish addressing this, and then I'll go to you. The most common points in addressing in this discussion, okay? And all I'll say to that is, granted, and I'll go back to the beginning of my presentation, we've woken up, never going back to sleep. So what that means is it's on us to make sure that the next governor, the next legislature doesn't play with it. But if you eliminate it, it makes it harder for them to bring it back. Now, I would also say, you know, with regard to the state holding funding, we can have a difference of opinion on this. I have the same concern, but through active engagement at the local level has proven to me that they can't handle it, okay? Now, in my school district, I feel very comfortable about that, to say that if we keep the status quo, continued spending increases. They have never developed a scenario that they think that they can actually stop spending. Here's a good example. One of the things that I mentioned in the beginning part of my presentation about our grievance letter that we went to the school board, here was a novel idea. When you go through the budget process, start from assumption of 0 increase. That's a reasonable expectation, right? A reasonable request. A citizens group goes and asks that. Well, when the laughing stopped on the school board, they have never addressed it. They have never taken the time in the budget process to build back and say, all right, what do I need to do just to hold the line in taxes? That's a simple thing. So in my view, the local process has been broken, and we have people who are not responsible in driving it. So I want to do something different. But I agree with you that vigilance is required, and I'm not going to back off of my support because of what may happen. Because you know what? Look, we've got a Republican legislature right now and a Republican governor. Look at how many things that make sense that are not getting done. So it's not Democrat and Republican. It is people who do not take their oath of office to serve the people the right way, the way it was intended. They take their oath of office to keep themselves in power. I'm sorry I went on longer, and I know, Hayden, you want to take, I know there are a couple of other questions here.
I think we are going to have to, we're going to have to move on. I'm sorry. Jim, that fantastic job.